Hello, everyone starting to join us. We'll just give a couple minutes here as we get started before we get into the meat of the presentation today. Just to make sure that the chat is working, can we get some hellos and maybe where you're from, where you're calling in from? Awesome, looking good so far.
Oh, Brazil, that's a long way.
See, Brazil is why I didn't say good morning today. We are sitting here in the Central European time zone here in Denmark, across Jutland and Zealand over here. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Eight in the morning. Thank you for joining us so bright and early.
Let's hope we don't put you to sleep again.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us this Thursday. I am Carlen Wilutis. I'm the VP of Customer Success here at Sentispec, and I will be hosting today's session. We're really looking forward to digging into the current landscape in AI and computer vision with Andreas and Magnus here, as well as any challenges that are bubbling up across the warehousing, transporting, and across the global supply chain spaces. Of course, we're also going to be zeroing in on how to build or maintain that competitive edge in logistics by using these sort of innovative technology solutions. Andreas here is the founder and CEO of Sentispec, and he comes from decades of experience in the technology space and with a particular focus on data science as well as artificial intelligence across his career. Andreas is joined by Magnus, one of Sentispec's senior salespeople, whose background and expertise lies in optimization and systems design within the 3PL and FMCG industries. And for the audience, please ask any and all questions that you have using the Q&A and chat functions whenever you've got them. I'll be answering some of those in real time during the presentation, but of course, we've also got a Q&A section coming at the end of the presentation. I'm really excited to dive in deeper to these trends and challenges. So without further ado, Andreas and Magnus, take it away.
Thank you.
So everybody see your presentation now? Good.
So when we look at logistics, we see a massive, massive opportunity. And that opportunity is making the flow of goods more fluent than it is today. Reduce the amount of manual labor you do, the manual admin work, reduce the amount of errors, and all of these things we can do with artificial intelligence, and specifically what we work with, which is computer vision. It's worth noting that you shouldn't take our word for it. You should probably go and read the DHL report that says largely the same thing as we do. So Katja Busch states that computer vision is becoming industry shaping, not just tweaking here and there, but actually shaping how the industry works. And from our perspective, that means a complete rethink of how humans and machines interact and each do what they do well, meaning that machines will do the tedious, voluminous, high consistency work, and humans will do the things that actually require adaptation, innovation, using all six senses and so on. When you look at the AI space, it's very much at present dominated by ChatGPT, which is worth a note. I've pulled out a few other applications of AI that you may or may not know already exist, but AI is an old topic. It's been around about as long as computer science has, 50, 60, 70 years now. But there's, of course, ChatGPT. I've noted under each of these areas what kind of AI they use. ChatGPT is natural language processing, machine learning, and some evolutionary computing. Then you have Tesla with their full self-driving. using autonomous agents, computer vision, and machine learning. Then you have the bank systems. They typically have expert systems for preventing fraud. You have things like Photoshop. You probably didn't know it, but Photoshop use AI and have done for a good 20 years. The image manipulation algorithms they use are not dissimilar to some of the technologies that we use. Then you have machine vision cameras. There's one here from Zebra, the FS40. Brilliant piece of machinery, will help you read barcodes moving at speed at quite a long distance. Impressive piece of kit. And then, of course, you have us. And what we do is process optimization using AI and computer vision, essentially improving quality and productivity in supply chains. That's what we do. So then the question is, where will AI impact warehousing and logistics? And as you can see from this slide, the short answer is everywhere, and it's already here. The individuals will see that data will be served more real time with more information in it. And over time, we're also seeing that that information becomes not just real-time alerting and real-time feedback, but also predictive. What should you be doing? What corrective actions should you take? What preventive actions should you take? Sentispec, briefly, we're in 10 countries now, working with about 30% of the top 20 largest logistics companies with our solutions. We have headquarters in Denmark, but we have offices in Copenhagen and in London and in the UK as well, and considering opening in more places as we follow our customers around the globe.
Yeah, so I will just use a few minutes to take you through our product portfolio and some use cases from where our solutions are currently deployed. So our product portfolio in 3 different products. It's an inventory, inspector, and handler. Inventory is an automated stock taking solution based on high-speed cameras where you take a recording on the full inventory area, and then our AI will translate the visual data into actual data points and then compare them to the data in the VMS, looking for discrepancies. Then we have our inspector solution that is based on fill rate optimization. So upon departures from a warehouse worker or a driver will take a picture on an app, upload it to the Sentispec platform, which will then calculate the actual fill rates in the car, enabling route planners to take more informed decisions and utilizing the network better than it is done currently. And lastly, we have handler that tracks the journey of a good throughout the warehouse. So based on your operation, you will have different milestones, but we will detect when a good goes from A to B through the warehouse, upload pictures to the milestone, and automate the scanning completely, thereby allowing for more transparency and less mistakes, so to say. So for handler, use example is for one of the biggest shipping companies in the world that has a Polish warehouse where the old process of taking pictures was completely manual. So a warehouse worker had to take a picture of every good going in and out of a truck. So we mounted a camera on a forklift and applied Sentispec software. Then we were able to automate the picture taking, and we were also able to automate the scanning process, resulting in a 7-minute reduction in loading admin time per container. All of this resulted in an uptake in the general warehouse productivity with 6%. Another example is from our inspector solution being deployed at Danix in the Finnish operations, which operates a network of trunk and last mile deliveries to over 500 locations every night. In the old process, the data was inconsistent because it is based on eyeball measuring. So by implementing Sentispec Inspector, they got actual data on actual fill rates, enabling the route planners to take more informed decision, and in the end, resulting in a 5% increase in route utilization. And lastly, we have our inventory product, which is the automated stock taking product. So for Frode Laursen, they had an old process where all of the stock taking was done manually by hand scanners, resulting in between 50 and 100 pallets to be counted per hour. By implementing inventory, they were able to scan up to 3,000 pallets per hour, resulting in an 80% decrease in cost of doing stock counting, Moreover, it decreased the amount of missing pallets and consequently the annual write-offs. So if you want to know how these products can fit into your operations, I will be very happy to take a discussion with you, and you can book a meeting with me in the link provided in the description for this event. And with that, Andreas, it's back to you.
Thank you, Magnus. When you look at AI in supply chain, as I mentioned earlier, AI is already there, right? No one does route planning today without using some form of AI, typically in the form of algorithmics, evolutionary computing, some simulation. It's already there. Same thing with scheduling of individuals. Very often you'd have analytics tool available, some kind of predictive and automated scheduling. Then quality control at the carton level, certainly from the manufacturers. Machine vision has been around for 20 odd years. That's already there. And what we're seeing now is automated warehousing, both high bays and sort of in the picking space. You see these autonomous agents and robotics running around. So AI is already here. That's not new. I think that the thing that is new is that we now have enough computing power available on the edge at a reasonable price. That means that computer vision starts becoming viable. And that's what we do, right? The picture on the right calls it out. That's from the DHL Trend Radar. There's a link. I recommend you go and read it. It's, I'd say it's a riveting read, or certainly an eye-opening read, because computer vision hits everything. Now, the use cases that Magnus mentioned earlier kind of showcase what is the driving force behind this. You have the customer quality, you have the consistency. That's number one on the list. That's what we hear from every single one of our customers. Please, can you help us do that? Why? Well, because it helps you differentiate. Right? Very simple. You go into a tender and you can say, well, I can do what the competition can do, but I can do it cheaper, and actually I can do it at vastly higher quality. A level of quality that you cannot tweak yourself to. You cannot do a 90% error reduction by just adding more of the same stuff. You need something that is a step change, and computer vision is that. Then there's the cost reduction. The cost reduction we typically see. The ROI we are often presented with as sort of the entry level is 12 months. We typically do 2 to 3 months return on investment now projects, but that's sort of a big driver. Take some cost out of the business, please. And then what we see as well is when we do all of these other things, we open up additional revenue. When you save 7 minutes per container, well, you can do more containers with the same amount of labor. So that's a potential capacity increase. And insofar that you have enough customers out there, then you essentially realize a revenue uplift. So where we see it is typically that the top two, very much the cost and quality of the loading operation. That's that's a request we get all the time, where our handler product is useful. And then there's the profitability of routes, typically around fill rate. So we have a case we're deploying at the moment with up to 5,000 daily departures. Do you have the right capacity deployed? Well, what if you could reduce it 3, 5, 10%? Fill rates will help you do that. And the other one we get a lot is dimension detection. So we're working on being able to assess the volume of every single pallet you put into a vehicle automatically. And we know that is a huge driver for revenue optimization.
Yeah. So big changes are coming, and they're coming fast right now. What we see at some of our clients is that they shift towards a machine-first delivery model. So they look at all of their processes, and then they evaluate if a machine cannot do the work, only then the work will get allocated to a human. So this represents a fundamental change in how to think about processes and how to involve AI and computer vision into daily operations. So this is because we've now hit a point where the technology is actually mature enough for it to give competitive advantages to early adopters. So as Andreas mentioned earlier, there's just come a new logistics trend report from DHL, which identifies computer vision as a standard way of operating in the logistics industry already within the next 5 years. So currently the train is already leaving the station. Early adopters will gain an advantage, and late adopters will get pressured in terms of pricing and quality towards customers. Yeah, so there will come a downward pressure on pricing due to automation, because computer vision will allow you to utilize your resources better and to automate more of your existing processes that are not as value adding as other processes. This, yeah, once again, creates an advantage and an opportunity for early adopters and a challenge for late adopters within computer vision. And lastly, there's a growing focus on ESG, which creates an increased demand for traceability, which in turn will increase the pressure on having transparency throughout your supply chain.
So when you then look at all of these things happening, you've got all this innovation going on, you've got customers that increasingly demand more of you. Because of the additional solutions, different providers will offer a higher degree of variance in their solutions, and the differentiation will be greater and the automation will be greater. Then computer vision becomes not just a differentiator, it becomes a requirement. If you want to compete, you have got to consider, what does this mean? Now, as Magnus said, if you can get ahead of it, you can gain some market share. If you get behind it, then you will see that you are cancelled out of tenders simply because you can't do this or that. Automated stock taking, you can't do automated goods handling. And that means the cost base can be smaller if you do it, and the competitive advantage can be smaller if you don't do it.
Yeah, so how do we navigate in all of this? It affects different parts of the company. It induces a new requirement for skills within your workforce. Usually when deploying products that are disrupting existing processes, we have a lot of change management going on, which increases the demand for communication skills among your workforce, because more departments will be involved. Very much in the beginning, but also in the long run, because more departments will have access to the data stemming from the operations. So this also increases the demand for analytical abilities throughout your organization in order to actually capture the optimization potential and to implement the solution in the best way. Moreover, it creates a shift in how to think in processes. Usually, we look at historical data and plan based on that. Now, with having access to real-time data, the paradigm shifts more to a forward-looking perspective. So this could be moving from yearly planning to monthly planning, or for quarterly planning to monthly planning, thereby allowing your organization and your supply chain to be more agile and to act when the fundamentals are changing. So where do we start? Which technologies is in the beginning of the integration and the journey towards leveraging AI, and which ones are in the end? What we usually recommend our clients is to start investing in technologies that can provide you transparency in terms of real-time data. So you're basically providing your future AI with eyes and increasing the brain of the AI. Then when you have all of the data and the transparency throughout your supply chain, you will then be able to deploy AI solutions for network optimizations and passive optimizations, other places in your supply chain. But it all comes down to the data being available, and for the data to be in real time, in order for your supply chain to be as agile as possible and to realize as many of the benefits as AI presents. So with that, we will move to a Q&A session. And once again, if you have become more curious to on AI and computer vision and how it can affect your operations, I would be more than happy to take an individual discussion based on your operations. So please book a meeting, and we can look into how we can achieve better output in your supply chain.
Great. Thanks so much, Magnus and Andreas. Really insightful presentation here. Like Magnus mentioned, we can jump over to the Q&A here, and I've got a few questions sitting in the inbox. First and foremost, do we have partners in Poland? Yes, we have activities in Poland. And I know Magnus mentioned one of our Polish customers that's working there. So we definitely love to work with that market. So if that's you, please let us know. And we're happy to have a conversation about how we could potentially work together. A question I'll tee up to Andreas or Magnus. Which pieces of logistics or logistics sectors benefit most from AI and computer vision, in your opinion?
So maybe I can give a start on that one, and Magnus, you can finish off anything I may forget. A lot of different sectors. Let's start there. So any cross-docking, moving pallets, you know, in a warehouse and doing the cross-docking there has a huge benefit in automating and making that flow of goods inside the warehouse more fluid and more accurate. That's an obvious one. Any warehousing, pallet hotels, storing goods, 20, 30, 40,000 pallets, it's an obvious one. There's a huge benefit. And when I say huge benefit, just to be clear, I'm talking about 5 to 10% of your cost base size of optimizations. We're talking about 90, 95% reduction in errors kind of optimizations. Okay, so that's there's a bunch of other areas where there are smaller benefits, but those two, you're looking at that. When you look at any fleet operations, any parcel deliveries, any kind of trailers or containers with a dynamic load profile, you're looking at 3, 5, 10% increase in average fill rates. The monetary value of that is, I wouldn't say ridiculous, but it's significant. Okay. Anything I forgot, Magnus?
Yeah, I would say generally within the transparency in the supply chain and derived benefits from that. So for claim management, for example, actually being able to have better evidence of the state of a good at any point in this in the supply chain is it's a huge benefit. And then as you say, when it comes down to automation of scanning processes and dimension detection, that also represents a huge potential. We have clients who are looking into having fully automated warehouses already in 2025. So this is a fundamental in order for that to happen. So everything that comes down to transparency and efficiency within 3PL, computer vision can help. Currently, 99% of all visual data are discarded, and there are 10 times as much visual data as all other data sources combined. So applying algorithms to actually translate what we see into concrete data points and base optimization on that represents a huge potential throughout the operations. It's hard for me to say anything else than some really general use cases and terms, because as everybody knows, supply chains are individual, the pains are individual. So the optimization potential is also individual. So in order for us to explore this further, we need to look into your concrete processes and current pain points.
I could probably add to that. We very much focus on logistics because that's the core of supply chains. But what we're also seeing is manufacturers, retailers. We are working with some of them, and they are seeing different business cases, but equally huge upsides. I mean, in manufacturing, for example, when we do better on inventory management, then you reduce the probability of downtime in production. Downtime in production is very, very expensive. That's an example use case. When you look at retail, if your inventory is not up to date or your goods are not flowing, then you risk delays. Well, delays means goods not arriving in stores, which drives down your revenue. So in a sense, these types of businesses are victims of bad supply chains directly operating on their revenue and their production. We are seeing interest now from pharma. We are starting to see interest from oil and gas resources, mining. And I'm sure there's a bunch of other industries that have exactly the same types of problems, because at the end of the day, it's about moving goods as fluently, as quickly, as efficiently as possible. And that's what we offer. And then to do it while reducing your CO2 emissions, which is great.
Absolutely. When we think about industry specific, we do have a question. How could Sentispec or AI and computer vision in general help in pharmaceuticals, in pharma?
Oh boy, that could become a long answer. Right. So start with having, in a highly regulated environment, having a very high degree of certainty in your stock levels down to the individual item level. That's regulated by law. You must have that. We offer that quicker, faster, better than you can do it manually, right? Like a factor of 30 better, quicker, and faster. So there is that. And other than that, the distribution of your products have all of the same problems as you have in a traditional supply chain. You would like it to be fluent, you would like it to be fast. So I think many of the problems that you see are probably accentuated in pharma. We don't have a pharma customer yet, so if you're that, give us a shout, and we'll work on that. But we're pretty confident that there's a bunch to do.
Absolutely. Another question that we have in the inbox, how is Sentispec addressing visual data privacy concerns, knowing that we are working with vision products?
Yes, being a Danish company, we are under EU GDPR laws and we abide by them. The very simple solution is our AI can detect and remove or blur anything that looks like a person or a face. And that means that the data that we absorb at source are essentially anonymized at source and therefore are not personal data and therefore are not covered by GDPR, just by the nature of it. And that's how we get around it. Well, not get around it, we just don't do it, essentially.
Makes sense. And sort of piggybacking off of that, what sort of strategies are in place to quickly detect and then rectify those AI-related errors that may happen?
Okay, so that could be a long answer. Let me try my best. AI is only as good as the data you train it on, certainly in the space of machine learning, which much of what we do is machine learning. Now, there are many preventive things you can do, like picking the right types of neural networks to use, the right types of training. We do a massive amount of validation as well, which reduces our probability of error already at source. When we the problem here is we don't like to have any errors once we go live in operations, and we have very few errors when we go live in operations, because when we deploy, we make sure that it works. We make sure we have enough data whenever we update our software and update our AI models, we can validate them against every single site we've ever been on before we deploy it. And that means we see very few errors in production. When we see it, obviously we will do what you normally do in enterprise software. You do an upgrade, right? So without getting hugely technical, I think I'll leave it at that.
Great. Thanks for that. So when we think about AI, I think a lot of people may think of those larger 3PLs or those bigger companies who have more of that spend to actually leverage some of these AI solutions. How can a smaller company or direct warehouse, for example, maybe leverage similar technologies without hitting those high costs that can come with some of these implementations?
So our products are off the shelf, and I wouldn't say the word cheap, but they are certainly priced to ensure that there is a very strong business case within 2 to 3 months. So no matter the size of operation, this is accessible to everyone.
Awesome. Good to hear. Well, I think that's it. If there's no more questions about to enter the chat, we can wrap it up here. I did want to note that this is the first webinar in a series. So next time you join us, we'll be discussing more about trends and what we forecast for 2024 in the space. So make sure to join us then. We'll send out a link once we're ready to go. But thank you so much again for joining us across the world. Really nice to hear the presentation and some of these challenges and what we see coming.
There's a last minute question here.
Oh, one more from Erica. Thank you. Yeah. How does your product integrate with ERPs and generate dashboards?
So we have very simple integrations with ERP for very many good reasons. Project implementation, cost and time is one of them. And actually, our data demands out of the ERP are surprisingly simple. But we try to do a real-time integration. We're working on having standard integrations with the top 5 BMS and TMSs. But that data exchange is not much different from what you get in a normal hand scanner. So that in itself is not particularly complicated. Dashboards, I think, is a whole topic in its own right. We have a set of standard dashboards. We have the ability to consider our products as data sources, take that information, the resulting information, the result data, and present it in some standard dashboards in our Pinpoint platform, and you will have access to that. That could be a trend over, say, our stock taking system. How many locations did I check over the last month? Did I check as many as I'm contractually obliged to? Yes or no? You know, that kind of thing. What is my average loading time in this particular warehouse versus that other warehouse? Why is it higher or lower? Am I taking enough claims pictures? Am I seeing the reduction in claims volume that I expect out of these systems? You know, all these dashboards we're making available by default, but we are also making that result data available through API, so that you can pull it into your data lake, and then whatever visualization and so on systems you're using, you can do that as well. So I hope that answered the question.
Awesome. Sounds like it. Thanks, Erico. And I've got one for me. I'll take this one as my team's responsible for deployment. How long do our solutions take to deploy? It certainly depends on the solution. It can be as little as, honestly, an hour or two with our inspector solution, which is essentially an app that sits on your phone and helps you calculate fill rates using AI for transport operations and optimization there. We also have our inventory solution, which is focused on that automated stock taking, that we can deploy in just a few days on site. And then our handler solution, it's pretty custom to you. So that could be just a couple of weeks to get that up and running for you. But of course, we want to make sure that it works with your specific operations and needs. So we try to be as quick as possible, but we stick with you for the whole process to make sure that things are just working. And finally, one last question we do have. Do we already have some big logos in profile, or is it only MVP stage? I think the short answer is yes on that, without disclosing too much as we can in a recorded and public webinar. We're absolutely working across the globe with some of the bigger players in the 3PL space, especially.
There's one more question. What is your roadmap for 2024? Shall I take that one, Carlen?
Absolutely.
What is our so we have 4 products, right? We have the inventory product. We're doing a bunch of stuff with that, things like free space measurements, things like safety checks, bent beams, that kind of stuff. But actually, free space estimation could be really cool. On the handler product, we support loading operations. We're rapidly moving to unloading. But the big thing for handler is going to be automated dimension detection of every single pallet you put into a vehicle or a container. That's real. There's a bunch of other stuff, but don't mean to go through all the details. On the inspector side, we have gone from doing backloading only to now also doing side loading. So I think and that system works like exceptionally well. It is so rare we see a truck where we can't measure the fill rate on it. We are now extending it with a more granular view of the data that better supports very high volumes like the 5,000 departures a day I mentioned, because there's a subdivision and a hierarchy of data that we need to support in that. So there's a bit of work to do on that. Then I'd say predictive analytics on that, anomaly detection is huge. That's what we're going to be working on. On the Pinpoint side, which is sort of our overall platform, what we're working on is integrating the result data from all our 3 products and having a set of standard reports. So we have that for some of the products. We want more reports and want to covering all of the products. I think that was a short answer to a potentially lengthy one.
Awesome. And do we have a trial? Yes, we do have pilot stages and trials across our different products. So when it comes to our inspector product, that's a bit quicker to implement that way. But yes, we do have trial and pilot options for all of our product suite. Great. Well, thank you so much again. Thank you for these great questions. I learned something today myself, and I work here. So thanks again all, really, really nice. And please do join us for our next session. We'll get that link live for you to register as soon as we've got it. Thanks again. And thank you to Andreas and Magnus for speaking.
Thank you,
Have a great
everyone.
rest of your day, all.
Bye.